Do you feel like life is moving too quickly, days full with never-ending chores, but no tangible advancement? Like jogging on a treadmill? It is quite draining. Is this all there is, you ask? We pursue diversions and urgency in our reactive lives. However, the Stoics remind us that intention, not busyness, is the essential measure of life. Habits shape who we are and are the foundation of deliberate life. According to Epictetus, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The behaviors we'll discuss today are tools to help you match your behavior with your beliefs, not magic bullets. These habits may help you regain your power, live a purposeful life, and find the life you've been looking for. Whether you're just starting out or trapped in the grind, let's get started. Have you noticed that when anything goes wrong, we tend to blame the outside world? Our plans are ruined by the weather. A nasty coworker makes us feel down. We are late due to unforeseen traffic. It feels like the universe is conspiring against us. But here's a thought-provoking question. What if the issue is within ourselves rather than outside of us? What if, as the Stoics held, our true power is found in how we react to life rather than in influencing what occurs to us? The core of being proactive is taking back control of our responses. Life is full of unexpected events, such as delays, setbacks, and challenging individuals. The problem is that until you let it, none of these can stop you. Being proactive means understanding that although you have no influence over the world's events, you do have power over your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Let's start with something we all deal with on a daily basis: the actions of others. Imagine someone cutting in front of you as you're waiting in line for coffee. Your blood begins to boil instantly. Who does this person think they are, you ask yourself. You have an option right now. Your entire morning, not just your coffee run, might be ruined if you allow that fury to take control. Alternatively, you may stop, inhale, and tell yourself, this is not worth my peace of mind. It is at that wait when the magic occurs. Our ability to make decisions is located in what the Stoics referred to as the space between stimulus and response. Let's do something more with this. Being proactive means taking the initiative rather than merely controlling your responses. Highly successful people create chances rather than waiting for them to present themselves. Consider it similar to being a ship's captain. Even though the waters may be harsh, a proactive captain maintains the ship moving ahead by adjusting the sails. A reactive individual, on the other hand, lets the weather throw them around and complains about it. What's the difference? While the other obsesses about what they cannot control, the first concentrates on what they can. So, how can you put being proactive into practice? Begin modestly. Pause the next time anything goes wrong for you, like a late boss, a rude remark, or an unforeseen bill. Most of the time, the answer to the question, is this worth my energy, is no. Turn your attention back to the things that you can manage. Is it possible for you to arrange your time differently? Are you able to speak more clearly? Is it possible to change your perspective such that you view the problem as a chance? Additionally, remember to get ready. Intentionality is the foundation of a proactive life, not winging it. Make an intention for the day as you wake up. Consider it as setting the stage for how you will react to any situation that arises. Consider the Stoic concept of the control dichotomy. Let go of what you cannot control and concentrate on what you can control, including your thoughts, deeds, and attitudes. Have you ever had the feeling that you're always busy yet unsure of your actions? As if you're meeting deadlines, running errands, and crossing things off your list? But in your heart, are you wondering what the point is? The Stoics had a term for this, telos, which means your ultimate goal or the reason behind your actions. It's quite easy to become so engrossed in the daily grind that we fail to take a moment to ask ourselves, where am I actually going? They held that even the busiest person might squander their life chasing the wrong things if they lack a strong sense of direction. Thus, we arrive at the notion of starting with the goal in mind. Consider life to be an adventure. How will you know which roads to take if you don't know where you're going? It's similar to embarking on a hike without knowing where the path will lead. The satisfaction of reaching a peak or seeing the view you came for will never be experienced, even if you wander around and see some interesting sights. Life is no different. It is simple to spend your days pursuing diversions rather than creating the life you genuinely desire if you do not have a clear idea of what you are trying to achieve. Everything changes when you begin with the end in mind. Once overwhelming decisions start to make sense, do you want to accept that new position? Is it worthwhile to devote your time to a certain relationship? Should you get that fancy vehicle? You make decisions based on your ultimate vision rather than what is convenient or popular. And believe me when I say that true power is found in this alignment. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do, as Epictetus phrased it so aptly. However, how can you determine what your end looks like? Asking yourself profound questions is a good place to start. What are your primary values? What sort of legacy are you hoping to leave behind? Who are the individuals you wish to develop with? To truly understand these questions, you need to reflect, write in your journal, and perhaps take a few long walks. You can't answer them in 5 minutes, but once you start examining them, you'll notice a shift. Your priorities will begin to align with your mission, and your actions will seem more meaningful. Making a personal mission statement is one of the best ways to keep your attention on your goal. Consider it a concise, unambiguous statement of your values and direction, much like a compass. The statement could be as basic as I live to grow to serve others and to find joy in the small moments. It could also be more specific, describing your objectives for your professional, interpersonal, and personal development. The goal is to write a guide that will help you stay on course when life unavoidably deviates from your plan, not to write something flawless. Saying no to things that don't fulfill your purpose is also made easier when you live with the end in mind. We're continuously assaulted with chances, demands, and diversions. Without a clear goal, it's easy to say yes to everything, worrying we'll lose out. Knowing your goals, however, makes it simpler to distinguish between what is necessary and what is a distraction. The wise words of Seneca quote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Have you ever had the impression that your life is being controlled by your to-do list? You feel overwhelmed as soon as you wake up and look at everything you have to do. To feel like you're making progress, you begin by working on the simplest tasks first. But at the end of the day, you realize that despite your busy schedule, you neglected to do the things that are truly important. Does that sound familiar? You're not by yourself. The majority of us are in survival mode, putting out fires and taking care of whatever comes to mind first. The issue is that importance is sometimes overshadowed by haste. The tendency to put first things first enters the picture here. Consider your life to be a jar. The huge rocks are your relationships, your personal development, and your health. The sand represents the less important things, including social media, errands, and emails. If you fill your jar with sand first, there's no room for the rocks. But if you put the rocks in first, the sand may cover the holes. Rocks need to come first. Every single time, the Stoics knew this instinctively. Seneca remarked, It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. So, how do you decide what your big rocks are? Start by establishing your priorities. What are the things that, if you concentrated on them, would provide the most value to your life? Maybe it's spending quality time with your family, working on a passion project, or taking care of your physical health. Once you identify your priorities, the next step is preserving your time like it's sacred, because it is. No one else is going to prioritize your life for you. The world will fill your days with diversions if you don't set aside time for the things that are really important. Distractions are the big issue that has to be addressed. They are essential to the world in which we live. Hours might pass before you even notice it due to notifications, never-ending emails, and the urge to browse social media. These diversions would be viewed by the Stoics as a type of prohairesis, the loss of self-control over one's capacity for prudent decision-making. The secret, in their opinion, was to concentrate solely on what was in line with your larger purpose. According to Epictetus, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens, focusing on your actions and time and letting go of everything else. This is what Epictetus meant. The problem is that prioritizing demands a lot of saying no. Say no to unnecessary responsibilities, disruptions, and items that don't fit your priorities. Although it's difficult, it's freeing. You make room for what matters when you refuse what doesn't. Keep in mind that every yes means no to something else. It was Seneca who said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." Remember to plan for downtime. Sleep is a need, not a luxury. The Stoics were also aware of this. They supported equilibrium. 10. The necessity of resting in order to confront life with fortitude and clarity. Include time for introspection, rest, and rejuvenation when you are organizing your priorities. You may continue to be present for the things that are important because of these, therefore they are not wasted time. What attitude do you have when you walk into a negotiation, a dispute, or even simply a friendly conversation? Are you trying to gain the upper hand by winning at any cost? Isn't that alluring? After all, we are trained to compete and win from an early age. The problem is, though, what happens when one person wins and the other loses? Annoyance, bitterness, and frequently lost chances for genuine connection. With their profound knowledge of human nature, the Stoics saw the flaws in this strategy. Seneca said, "What difference does it make how much you have? What you do not have amounts to much more the lesson." Creating value for all parties involved is what true success is all about, not taking more. The win-win mentality is useful in this situation. It's about changing our mindset from one of rivalry to cooperation. You question, how can I create an outcome where everyone feels valued rather than what you can gain from a scenario? This goes beyond simply being polite and avoiding confrontation. It's an effective tactic for developing connections, earning trust, and producing long-lasting outcomes. Let's now discuss the issue at hand. A common misconception about win-win is that it implies sacrificing your desires in order to satisfy others. However, we're not discussing that. Finding solutions that benefit both parties is what is meant by having a win-win mentality, not compromising your demands. For example, your success doesn't threaten mine. That change in perspective is really freeing. Opportunities increase when you choose to perceive people as partners rather than rivals. Let's face it, though, it's not always simple to think win-win. Ego complicates everything. We wish to demonstrate ... We have good reason to believe that we have won. Stoicism can alter everything in this situation. A win-win attitude necessitates humility, the capacity to put aside one's ego and pay attention to others. Epictetus stated, "It is impossible for man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Prioritizing understanding above agreement is the key. Practice makes perfect, but it's easier said than done." So, how can one develop this kind of thinking? Change your perspective first. Ask what's the best outcome for everyone involved, rather than how can I get what I want, and then show empathy. Try to understand the problem from the perspective of the other person by placing yourself in their shoes. What are they seeking? What is required of them? It will be simpler to establish trust and come up with ideas that benefit both parties when you approach a conversation with this degree of understanding. Communication is another essential component. Communicate your objectives clearly and encourage others to follow suit. For instance, while you're negotiating, ask them to disclose their objectives and be clear about what you value. The most important things to each person are frequently not directly at odds with one another. It just comes down to coordinating your objectives. Have you ever had the impression that someone else wasn't paying attention during a conversation? Perhaps they interrupted you when you were sharing your horror and offered counsel you hadn't requested. Even worse, they redirected the discussion on themselves. Isn't that frustrating? The worst part, though, is that we've all been that person before. We are only waiting for our chance to speak, even if we believe we are listening. The majority of individuals fall into this trap so frequently that they aren't even aware they are doing it. But to the Stoics, this would have been a lost chance. They held that comprehending others, not forcing your own views on them, is the first step toward genuine knowledge. The quote from Epictetus goes, "We have one mouth and 2 ears so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." The majority of us listen with the intention of reacting. Our minds are always striving to come up with the ideal response, argument, or piece of guidance, even while we are silent. However, that isn't true listening. Being present is necessary for real hearing, or what we may refer to as Stoic listening. It requires you to put aside your personal goals and give the other person your whole attention. When someone is properly grounded in life, they shouldn't have to look outside themselves for approval. Marcus Aurelius encapsulated this notion perfectly. When you're secure in yourself, you don't need to dominate a conversation or prove your point. All you have to do is listen. People instinctively open up when they feel heard, and here is where the magic happens. Consider the last time you had someone who actually paid attention to what you had to say, not simply nodded in agreement. It felt wonderful, didn't it? This is due to the fact that everyone has the urge to be understood. Meeting that need for another person creates a safe environment for cooperation, development, and even conflict resolution. This does not, however, imply that you should take a passive role in discussions. Letting someone talk non-stop while you nod courteously isn't the goal of understanding. It's about being curious and empathetic. Can you tell me more about how you're feeling? Understanding nonverbal clues is another essential component of this behavior. People use their tone, body language, and facial expressions to communicate significantly more than they can with words alone. The Stoics frequently stress the value of watching people objectively, clearly, and without bias. Perhaps Epictetus had ... Do not merely listen to their words, but seek the intention behind them. In modern parlance, it implies listening to what is not stated. Does the individual appear nervous, defensive, or enthusiastic? You can reply more empathetically if you have a better grasp of their mental state thanks to these hints. However, what occurs after you have a true understanding of someone? It is then your moment to speak, to be heard. The good news is that people are far more inclined to listen to you when you take the time to listen first, because they originate from a position of mutual respect and understanding. Your comments have greater weight. Finding a point where all sides feel heard and appreciated is more important than winning the discussion. Have you ever seen that when individuals get together, some of the greatest things in life occur? Collaboration has a profound effect. Whether it's a family overcoming obstacles to get closer or a wonderful idea generated during a team brainstorming session, the catch is that collaboration isn't always simple. Sometimes it is easier to handle everything oneself. Egos get in the way and personalities clash. Nevertheless, we lose out on something remarkable when we withdraw. This was profoundly recognized by the Stoics, who taught that people are social creatures by nature and that collaboration is the key to success. According to Marcus Aurelius, what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. This means that when we cooperate, we all gain. The notion that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts is the foundation of synergy. Consider it similar to making a cake. On its own, flour, sugar, eggs, and butter are all okay, but when combined they produce something entirely new and far more delicious. In our communities, teams, and relationships, synergy functions similarly. Working together to create something new and better is more important than just combining our abilities. The problem is that synergy is not something that just happens. It necessitates having an open mind and be prepared to accept diversity. And the majority of folks struggle here. People that share our viewpoints think similarly to us and don't question our views are inherently appealing to us. Although it's cozy, it's also restrictive. We would be urged to leave this comfort zone by the Stoics. According to Epictetus, it is impossible to begin to learn that which one thinks one already knows. Genuine synergy starts when we acknowledge that other people's perspectives and strengths, even when they diverge from our own present chances for development. Of course, a particular attitude is necessary for synergy. It needs humility beyond anything else. You must be prepared to acknowledge that other people's opinions are valuable and that you don't know everything. This might be difficult, particularly if you have faith in your skills. However, humility makes room for others to give their best effort, and as Seneca sagely noted, there is no one so perfect that they cannot learn from others. Trust is also necessary. When you collaborate with others, you are entrusting them a portion of your accomplishment. Although it may seem hazardous, trust is the cornerstone of any cooperative partnership. This was recognized by the Stoics, who emphasized the value of justice, treating others with respect and equity. People are more inclined to bring their whole selves to the table when you respect and trust them. At that point, genuine synergy occurs. How, therefore, can you cultivate synergy in your day-to-day activities? Engage in active listening first. Refrain from passing judgment or discounting someone's ideas when they are shared. Instead, find out how their skills might enhance yours. Investigate their viewpoint and pose questions. Consider conflicts as chances rather than challenges, and above all, keep being curious. Helps you perceive problems as puzzles that can be solved together and keeps you open to new possibilities. Have you ever had a sense of exhaustion? Perhaps you've been working tirelessly, balancing obligations, and exerting yourself to the utmost. It feels productive at first, since you're finishing work, meeting deadlines, and accomplishing goals. But eventually the fissures become visible. You feel exhausted, your concentration is faltering, and even the most basic tasks seem too much to handle. No matter how hard you work, the results are insufficient, as when you try to cut down a tree with a dull axe. For the Stoics, this would be a warning, a reminder that even the most resilient of us must care for the brains, bodies, and souls that we need to get by in life. Let's start with the physical and divide this into 4 dimensions. Even though your body is the cornerstone of everything you do, we sometimes disregard it first. We promise ourselves we'll work out later, skip meals, and get less sleep. The truth is that taking care of your body improves not just your physical well-being, but also your capacity for thought, productivity, and interpersonal relationships. Healthy eating, regular exercise, and restful sleep are essentials, not extravagances. Even the discipline-loving Stoics understood the significance of bodily health. According to Epictetus, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This involves meeting one's fundamental necessities in order to maintain a purposeful existence. Let's move on to the topic of mental regeneration. Our thoughts are inundated with information in the modern world, including emails, headlines, notifications, and never-ending to-do lists. It is understandable why we feel overburdened. Making room for concentration and development is the first step in sharpening the mental saw. This may be reading an inspirational book, picking up a new skill, or just setting aside some time to reflect without interruptions. The Stoics held that introspective contemplation has great power. For example, Marcus Aurelius worked through difficulties and clarified his values in his journal. Reflecting helps you respond to life's obstacles more intelligently. He stated, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." The emotional aspect is just as significant. If we're not cautious, the pressures of life might negatively impact our relationships and emotional health. Sharpening this aspect of the saw entails cultivating interpersonal relationships and engaging in self-compassion exercises. Given that people are social beings by nature, the Stoics placed a strong emphasis on the importance of connections. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." By re-establishing emotional equilibrium, gratitude and connection strengthen our ability to withstand stress. The last element that connects everything is spiritual regeneration. For the Stoics, this meant living according to your values and understanding your role in the greater scheme of things. It has more to do with meaning and purpose than religion. How recently have you taken the time to consider what is most important to you? Spiritual refreshment provides the clarity to concentrate on what matters most, whether it is achieved by writing, meditation, prayer, or just spending time in nature. We appreciate your participation in Stoic Thread. Take a moment to see one of the recommended videos on your screen if you found this useful. It's the next phase in your quest for a life that is more purposeful and significant. Strive for progress rather than perfection. I appreciate you seeing, and I hope to see you in the future one. Remain anchored and continue to develop.